Hello friends and welcome. Today I am going to deliver a lecture on structure of male and female reproductive gonads and tract, testicular and ovarian hormones and gametogenesis. The main objectives of today's deliberation are: number first, to give a general and thorough idea about the reproductive system. Number second, to explain in detail the structure of male and female reproductive gonads and tract. Number third, to discuss in detail testicular and ovarian hormones. Number four, to give a general idea about the process of gametogenesis. And finally, we shall discuss the process of oogenesis and spermatogenesis. Now, we will start with the reproductive system. All living things reproduce. The ability to reproduce is one of the unifying characteristics of all living things. Reproduction, that is, the process by which organisms make more organisms like themselves, is one of the things that sets living things apart from non-living matter. But even though the reproductive system is essential to keeping a species alive, unlike other body systems, it is not essential to keep an individual alive. Sexual reproduction produces offsprings that are genetically different from their parents. Asexual reproduction produces offsprings that are genetically identical to their parent. In sexual reproduction, new individuals are produced by the fusion of haploid gametes to form a diploid zygote. The reproductive system or genital system is a system of sex organs within an organism which work together for the purpose of sexual reproduction. Many non-living substances such as fluids, hormones and pheromones are also important accessories to the reproductive system. Unlike most organ systems, the sexes of differentiated species often have significant differences. Now, let us discuss the structure of male reproductive gonads and tract. The purpose of the organs of the male reproductive system is to perform the following functions. Number first, to produce, maintain and transport sperm, that is the male reproductive cells, and protective fluid, that is the semen. Number second, to discharge sperm within the female reproductive tract during sex. Number third, to produce and secrete male sex hormones responsible for maintaining the male reproductive system. The male reproductive anatomy includes internal and external structures. Most of the male reproductive system is located outside of the man's abdominal cavity or pelvis. The external structures of the male reproductive system are the penis, the scrotum and the testicles. Now, the penis. The penis is the male organ for sexual intercourse. It has three parts. Number first, the root, which attaches to the wall of the abdomen. Number second, the body or shaft, and the glans, which is the cone-shaped end of the penis. The glans, which also is called the head of the penis, is covered with a loose layer of skin called foreskin. This skin is sometimes removed in a procedure called circumcision. Number second is the scrotum. The scrotum is the loose pouch-like sac of skin that hangs behind the penis. It contains the testicles, also called as the testes, as well as many nerves and blood vessels. The scrotum has a protective function and acts as a climate control system for the testes. For normal sperm development, the testes must be at a temperature slightly cooler than the body temperature. Number third is the testicles. The testes are oval organs about the size of very large olives that lie in the scrotum, secured at either end by the structure called the spermatic cord. Most men have two testes. The testes are responsible for making testosterone, the primary male sex hormone, and for generating sperm. Within the testes are coiled mass of tubules called the seminiferous tubules. These tubules are responsible for producing the sperm cells through a process called spermatogenesis. Next is the epididymis. The epididymis is a long coiled tube that rests on the back side of each testicle. It functions in the transport and storage of the sperm cells that are produced in the testes. The internal organs of the male reproductive system, also called as the accessory organs, include the following. Number first is the vas deferens. The vas deferens is a long muscular tube that travels from the epididymis into the pelvic cavity to just behind the bladder. The vas deferens transports mature sperm to the urethra in preparation for ejaculation. Next is the ejaculatory ducts. These are formed by the fusion of the vas deferens and the seminal vesicles. The ejaculatory ducts empty into the urethra. Next is the urethra. The urethra is the tube that carries urine from the bladder to outside of the body. In males, it has the additional function of expelling, that is ejaculating semen, when the man reaches orgasm. When the penis is erect during sex, the flow of urine is blocked from the urethra, allowing only semen to be ejaculated at orgasm. Next is the seminal vesicles. The seminal vesicles are sac-like pouches that attach to the vas deferens near the base of the bladder. The seminal vesicles produce a sugar-rich fluid containing fructose that provides sperm with a source of energy and helps with the sperm's motility, that is, its ability to move. Next is the prostate gland. The prostate gland is a walnut-sized structure that is located below the urinary bladder in front of the rectum. The prostate gland contributes additional fluid to the ejaculate. Prostate fluids also help to nourish the sperm. Next is the bulbourethral glands. The bulbourethral glands or the Cowper's glands are pea-sized structures located on the sides of the urethra just below the prostate gland. These glands produce a clear, slippery fluid that empties directly into the urethra. This fluid serves to lubricate the urethra and to neutralize any acidity that may be present due to residual drops of urine in the urethra. The entire male reproductive system is dependent on hormones, which are chemicals that stimulate or regulate the activity of cells or organs. The primary hormones involved in the functioning of the male reproductive system are follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and testosterone. Now, let us try to have a look at the structure of female reproductive gonads and tract. The development of the normal female reproductive tract is a complex process. The indifferent gonad differentiates to the ovary. The mesonephros, Wolffian and Mullerian ducts differentiate in an orchestrated manner to form the uterus, vagina, and the lower urinary tract. Disordered differentiation can result in congenital abnormalities affecting the female reproductive tracts, renal tract, and lower intestines. A number of rudimentary structures can persist and can be encountered in clinical practice. Most commonly, these are derived from the Wolffian ducts. In females, the genital organs comprise of gonads, reproductive ducts, and external genitalia. Gonadal differentiation occurs before the end of the embryonic period. Both the reproductive ducts and external genitalia differentiate before the end of the first trimester. The female reproductive system provides several functions. The ovaries produce the female egg cells called the ova or oocytes. The oocytes are then transported to the fallopian tube where fertilization by a sperm may occur. The fertilized egg then moves to the uterus where the uterine lining has thickened in response to the normal hormones of the reproductive cycle. Once in the uterus, the fertilized egg can implant into thickened uterine lining and continue to develop. If fertilization does not take place, the uterine lining is shed as menstrual flow. The female reproductive anatomy includes both external and internal structures. The function of the external female reproductive structures is twofold: to enable sperm to enter the body and to protect the internal genital organs from infectious organisms. The main external structures of the female reproductive system include: number first is the labia majora. The labia majora, that is the large lips, enclose and protect the other external reproductive organs. During puberty, hair growth occurs and the skin of the labia majora, which also contain sweat and oil secreting glands. Next is the labia minora. The labia minora, that is the small lips, can have a variety of sizes and shapes. They lie just inside the labia majora and surround the openings to the vagina, that is the canal that joins the lower part of the uterus to the outside of the body, and urethra, that is the tube that carries urine from the bladder to the outside of the body. This skin is very delicate and can become easily irritated and swollen. Next is the Bartholin's glands. These glands are located next to the vaginal opening on each side and produce a fluid secretion. Next is the clitoris. The two labia minora meet at the clitoris, a small sensitive protrusion that is comparable to the penis in males. The clitoris is covered by a fold of skin called the prepuce, which is similar to the foreskin at the end of the penis. Like the penis, the clitoris is very sensitive to stimulation and can become erect. Next is the urethra. The opening to the urethra is just below the clitoris. Although it is not related to sex or reproduction, it is included in the vulva. Next is the hymen. The hymen is a thin fold of mucous membrane that separates the lumen of the vagina from the urethral sinus. Sometimes it may partially cover the vaginal orifice. The hymen is usually perforated during later fetal development. Now, the internal reproductive organs. The internal reproductive organs include: number first is the vagina. The vagina is a canal that joins the cervix, that is the lower part of the uterus, to the outside of the body. It is also known as the birth canal. Number second is the cervix. The cervix is the lower narrow portion of the uterus where it joins with the top end of the vagina. Number third is the uterus. The uterus is a hollow, pear-shaped organ that is home to a developing fetus. Next is the ovaries. The ovaries are small, oval-shaped glands that are located on either side of the uterus. The ovaries produce eggs and hormones. Next is the fallopian tubes. These are narrow tubes that are attached to the upper part of the uterus and serve as pathways for the ova to travel from the ovaries to the uterus. Fertilization of an egg by a sperm normally occurs in the fallopian tubes. The fertilized egg then moves to the uterus where it implants to the uterine lining. Now, let us discuss the testicular and ovarian hormones. A fascinating aspect of development is the potential of sexually undifferentiated embryos to generate male or female individuals. Our knowledge of mammalian sex determination and differentiation has increased steadily in recent years. The testicle has two important and complementary functions in the adult male, that is, the production of sperm and the synthesis of testosterone. Testicular function is directed by the central nervous system through its effects on the pituitary gland. Precise regulation of testicular function is accomplished by an elegant endocrine feedback loop in which the secretion of pituitary gonadotropins is stimulated by the pulsatile release of gonadotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus and modulated by testicular hormones. Inhibin, testosterone and its metabolites inhibit the secretion of the gonadotropins both directly at the pituitary and centrally at the level of the hypothalamus. In the testes, luteinizing hormone mainly stimulates testosterone production and follicle stimulating hormone promotes spermatogenesis, but the exact details of these actions are only now being elucidated. The main hormone secreted by the testes is testosterone, an androgenic hormone. Testosterone is secreted by the cells that lie between the seminiferous tubules known as the Leydig cells. The testes also produce inhibin B and anti-Mullerian hormone from Sertoli cells, and insulin-like factor 3 and ostradiol from the Leydig cells. Testosterone is important in the first stages of developing the male reproductive organs in a fetus. It also causes the development of male characteristics such as growth of facial hair, deepening of the voice and the growth spurt that takes place during puberty. Testosterone is important in maintaining these secondary male characteristics throughout a man's life. From puberty onwards, testosterone provides the main stimulus for sperm production. The functions of the testicles are influenced by gonadotropic hormones that are produced by the anterior pituitary. Luteinizing hormone results in the testosterone release. The presence of both testosterone and follicle stimulating hormone is needed to support spermatogenesis. The ovaries are a pair of ova producing organs that maintain the health of the female reproductive system. In addition to their role in producing ova, the ovaries also have the distinction of being an endocrine gland because they secrete hormones, primarily estrogen and progesterone, that are vital to normal reproductive development and fertility. Ovaries produce and release two groups of sex hormones, that is, the progesterone and estrogen. There are actually three major estrogens known as estradiol, estrone and estriol. These substances work together to promote the healthy development of female sex characteristics during puberty and to ensure fertility. Estrogen is instrumental in breast development, fat distribution in the hips, legs and breasts, and the development of reproductive organs. To a lesser extent, the ovaries release the hormone relaxin prior to giving birth. Another minor hormone is inhibin, which is important for signaling to the pituitary to inhibit follicle stimulating hormone secretion. Progesterone and estrogen are necessary to prepare the uterus for menstruation, and their release is triggered by the hypothalamus. As the egg migrates down the fallopian tube, progesterone is released. It is secreted by a temporary gland formed within the ovary after ovulation called the corpus luteum. Progesterone prepares the body for pregnancy by causing the uterine lining to thicken. If a woman is not pregnant, the corpus luteum disappears. If a woman is pregnant, the pregnancy will trigger high release of estrogen and progesterone, which prevent further eggs from maturing. Now, let us discuss the process of gametogenesis. Gametogenesis is the production of haploid sex cells that each carry one half the genetic complement of the parents from the germ cell line of each parent. The production of ovum is termed oogenesis and production of spermatozoa is called spermatogenesis. Both oogenesis and spermatogenesis provide a mechanism through which genetic information may be passed to offspring. The fusion of spermatozoa and ova during fertilization results in a zygote with a fully restored diploid genome. The production of male and female gametes is a highly complex and coordinated sequence of a mitotic division, two meiotic divisions, cytoplasmic divisions and cellular differentiation. Any chronic alteration in the sequence of morphological and biochemical transformations required to produce gametes usually results in sterility for the affected parent. Spermatogenesis provides the haploid gametes necessary to pass on paternal genetic information. Oogenesis provides the haploid gamete necessary to pass on maternal genetic information and extranuclear genetic information, for example, the mitochondrial DNA. Now, coming to the process of spermatogenesis. While the reproductive divisions of meiosis are conserved in every eukaryotic kingdom of life, the regulation of meiosis in mammals differs dramatically between males and females. Spermatogenesis is the process of sperm cell development. Rounded immature sperm cells undergo successive mitotic and meiotic divisions and a metamorphic change to produce spermatozoa. Mitosis encompasses just one step in the eukaryotic cell cycle. Cells grow during the dominant G1 phase, replication of chromosomes occurs in the S phase, preparation for mitosis takes place during G2 replication of organelles and synthesis of microtubules. Interphase includes the combined stages, that is G1, S and G2. The final stage of the cell cycle, when cell division actually occurs, is called cytokinesis. Meiosis is a special process of reductional cell division. It results in the formation of 4 gametes containing half the number of chromosomes found in somatic cells. Haploid gametes unite at fertilization to create a diploid zygote. Remember that in mammals, the heterogametic male, that is XY, determines the sex of the embryo. Genes carried on the X chromosome that inhibits spermatogenesis are inactivated in the XY somatic cells. Now, the spermatocytogenesis. During spermatocytogenesis, primitive cells called spermatogonia proliferate by mitosis. Several different types of spermatogonia have been identified. Only the discriminating anatomist can actually distinguish among types of spermatogonia. Mitosis ends when a spermatogonium yields 2 primary spermatocytes. The diploid number of primary spermatocytes is halved during meiosis. A primary spermatocyte is transformed into 2 secondary spermatocytes during meiosis first. These cells then in turn are converted into supermatids during meiosis second. The second meiotic division is rapid and therefore very few secondary spermatocytes can be identified in histological sections. Supermatocytes and supermatids tend to be larger than their ancestral spermatogonia. Males have an almost unlimited capacity to produce germ cells. This is accomplished by replenishment of spermatogonia early in mitosis. Now, the spermatidogenesis. Spermatidogenesis is the creation of supermatids from secondary spermatocytes. Secondary spermatocytes produced earlier rapidly enter meiosis second and divide to produce haploid supermatids. Next is the supermeiogenesis. Throughout spermatocytogenesis, cells retain a rounded configuration. Supermatids undergo a dramatic change in form during supermeiogenesis into the streamlined spermatozoa adapted for fertilization. Supermeiogenesis involves nuclear condensation, formation of the acrosomal cap and development of a tail. The acrosome is derived from the Golgi apparatus. At all stages of differentiation, the spermatogenic cells are in close contact with Sertoli cells, which are thought to provide structural and metabolic support to the developing sperm cells. Now, at last, let us discuss the process of oogenesis. Just like spermatogenesis, oogenesis involves the formation of haploid cells from an original diploid cell called a primary oocyte through meiosis. The female ovaries contain the primary oocytes. There are two major differences between the male and female production of gametes. First of all, oogenesis only leads to the production of one final ovum or egg cell from each primary oocyte, in contrast to the 4 sperms that are generated from every spermatogonium. The production of one egg cell via oogenesis normally occurs only once in a month from puberty to menopause, whereas the gamete formed by the spermatogenesis is essentially a motile nucleus. The gamete formed by oogenesis contains all the materials needed to initiate and maintain metabolism and development. The mechanisms of oogenesis vary among species more than those of spermatogenesis. This difference should not be surprising since patterns of reproduction vary so greatly among species. Now, the oocytogenesis. Oogenesis starts with the process of developing oogonia, which occurs via the transformation of the primordial follicles into primary oocytes, a process called oocytogenesis. Oocytogenesis is complete either before or shortly after birth. It is commonly believed that when oocytogenesis is complete, no additional primary oocytes are created, in contrast to the male process of spermatogenesis, where gametocytes are continuously created. Next is the ootidogenesis. The succeeding phase of ootidogenesis occurs when the primary oocyte develops into an ootid. This is achieved by the process of meiosis. In fact, a primary oocyte is by its biological definition a cell whose primary function is to divide by the process of meiosis. However, although this process begins at prenatal age, it stops at prophase first. Next is the meiosis first. Meiosis first of ootidogenesis begins during embryonic development but halts in the diplotin stage of prophase first until puberty. For those primary oocytes that continue to develop in each menstrual cycle, however, synapsis occurs and tetrads form, enabling chromosomal crossover to occur. As a result of meiosis first, the primary oocyte has now developed into the secondary oocyte and the first polar body. Next is the meiosis second. Immediately after meiosis first, the haploid secondary oocyte initiates meiosis second. However, this process is also halted at the metaphase second stage until fertilization, if such should ever occur. When meiosis second has completed, an ootid and another polar body have now been created. Next is the folliculogenesis. Synchronously with ootidogenesis, the ovarian follicle surrounding the ootid has developed from a primordial follicle to a pre-ovulatory one. Next is the maturation into ovum. All 3 polar bodies disintegrate at the end of meiosis second, leaving only the ootid, which then eventually undergoes maturation into a mature ovum. The function of forming polar bodies is to discard the extra haploid sets of chromosomes that have resulted as a consequence of meiosis. That is all about today's lecture. Hope you have understood it very well. Thank you very much and have a good day.